This conference will now be recorded.
All right, welcome everyone. If you are just joining us, and if you're not on your phone in the car, please drop your name and affiliation into the chat if you haven't done so already. And welcome to the February monthly partnership meeting of SCDRP, or the Southeastern Caribbean Disaster Resilience Partnership. This is our first partnership meeting of the year, so thank you for being here. And my name is Claire McGrath. I'm the director of SCDRP. So our agenda for today, as usual, we'll start off with a couple of SCDRP announcements and a couple of updates. Then I will introduce our speaker today, Evan Jenkins from the Florida Division of Emergency Management. And then we will wrap up with some partner sharing time. So if you have any announcements, job opportunities, requests for proposals, events that you'd like to share with the group, you can either drop those into the chat at the end, or you can also unmute yourself and share those. So first, I'd like to acknowledge and thank our benefactors and our partners, because we've got a couple of new organizations up here. So first of all, thank you to the Indian River Lagoon National Estuary Program. Y'all just saw Dwayne, who is the executive director. And to NOAA Southeastern Caribbean Regional Collaboration Team, or CCART. I haven't seen the full attendee list, but I bet we have a couple of CCART people with us today. Thank you so much to those two organizations for serving as benefactors of SCDRP. We're also grateful to IEM for your sustaining partnership with SCDRP. And also thank you to Moffitt and Nickel. I know I saw Jeff Morris on here. And Georgia Tech Center for Sustainable Communities, Research, and Education for your supporting partnership. So if you're interested in becoming a partner to SCDRP and supporting our work to promote regional collaboration, you can scan that QR code right there that takes you to our membership page and tells you a little bit more about the benefits. So I'd encourage you all to visit that. And just a reminder that SCDRP is a program of SCORA, the Southeast Coastal Ocean Observing Regional Association, which is a 501c3 nonprofit organization. And if you want to learn more about SCORA and their work, you can go to scora.org. So next, I would like to welcome a new member of the SCDRP Advisory Board. I don't think she was able to join today, but Lori, if you're here, feel free to unmute yourself and say hello. Lori Carey Cothera was elected to the open nonprofit seat on the SCDRP Advisory Board. So Lori has more than a decade of leadership in coastal climate adaptation and resilience. She brings a blend of federal policy experience, stakeholder engagement, and local implementation across the U.S. Southeast and Caribbean region. She previously worked with NOAA, the White House Council for Environmental Quality, and the EPA. So currently, Lori is the Chief Conservation Officer at the Coastal Conservation League, and there she's leading the organization's strategic expansion of resilience and conservation partnerships across South Carolina's coast. So we're very excited to welcome Lori, an extremely valuable addition to the SCDRP Advisory Board. And if you will be at the SCDRP annual meeting, you can say hi to Lori there. So next up, we are just 1 week out from the SCDRP 10th anniversary annual meeting. We hope to see some of you there. If you're not able to make it, that's okay. We are recording all meeting sessions and we'll post them on our YouTube account after the meeting. We'll also have a page up during the meeting with resources that speakers are sharing. So you can follow along that way too, and that's on our 10th annual meeting webpage, which the QR code will take you to that page. We will also be hosting right after the main meeting an invite-only emergency management roundtable. So I'm excited to just share a little bit about that because it's a cool initiative, cool project for SCDRP. We are convening 13 county or municipal level emergency managers from across the region, um, from North Carolina down to Puerto Rico and the US Virgin Islands, alongside multi-sector partners. So really leveraging SCDRP's strength of building connections and building cross-sector partnerships. This is a practitioner-focused event. It's designed to help emergency managers strengthen operational capacity, build durable partnerships, and develop practical strategies to support disaster management and also to identify potential new pathways for funding aside from federal reimbursement, given all of the potential changes. These strategies and solutions are going to be synthesized into a published regionally grounded action plan, and which we have a consultant who's going to help us with. And that will be published and shared nationally to support emergency managers across the country. So stay tuned for that. We're really excited to share that with you all after the meeting. And we're grateful to the CO2 Foundation for supporting both the SCDRP annual meeting and also the roundtable. All right, so finished up with SCDRP announcements. Next, I'm very pleased to introduce our speaker today, Evan Jenkins. Evan is a mitigation planner with the Mitigation Bureau at the Florida Division of Emergency Management. He serves as the Silver Jackets team lead for Florida, where FDEM acts as the lead state coordinating agency. In this role, Evan fosters collaboration among federal, state, and local partners to reduce flood risks across Florida. He provides technical assistance on projects that address flood vulnerabilities, strengthen community resilience, and promote transparent communication and information sharing among stakeholders to advance best practices in flood risk management. So I encourage you all during this meeting. I know we've got a lot of people from Florida on the call, which is great. So I encourage you all to think while Evan is presenting about any questions you have and what you're hoping to do with this information moving forward. We will have a Q&A period where Evan will answer any questions that you all have, which you can drop in the chat. You can unmute yourself. But again, the purpose of these meetings is to foster continued collaboration. So be thinking about any questions you have for Evan about how you can get involved. And I am going to pass it over to Evan. All right, Evan, you should be able to share your screen now.
Can you hear me and can you see me?
I can hear you.
Can you see my screen? I'm sorry.
Oh, yes.
Okay, cool.
Yeah, we can see your screen. You are all set to go.
All right, thank you so much, Claire. I appreciate it. So, like Claire said, my name is Evan Jenkins. I work at FDEM, which is the Florida Division of Emergency Management. I'm the lead coordinator for Silver Jackets for Florida, and I'm also a mitigation planner for 3 other regions in Florida. So here's a little background for what Silver Jackets is. Silver Jackets sits under the Natural Flood Risk Management Program. And Silver Jackets are state, territorial, and tribal-led interagency teams that USACE supports. There are currently 56 teams within all 50 states and 4 territories, and the District of Columbia and the Navajo Nations. So a big tagline for Silver Jackets is no single agency has all the answers, but each has one piece of the puzzle. The goal of this these teams is to leverage expertise and programs and perspectives of multiple partners to get results to have more comprehensive, sustainable solutions for flooding, drought, and other natural hazards. Good outcomes can vary and look different from team to team, but the biggest part is trying to collaborate with everyone and try and get one cohesive unit to try and reduce risk for different natural hazards. So the state, territory, or tribal-led sets the direction of the team, and USACE, or the United States Army Corps, assists in facilitation of the program. Silver Jackets are state, territory, and tribal-led. It emphasizes the leadership and identities of those different jurisdictions and territories, and supporting by USACE or coordinators through different state agencies and federal agencies. Each Silver Jackets team normally has a federal representative and a state representative. So for Florida, FDEM is the lead agency for the program, and USACE is the lead federal program for Silver Jackets. For the Silver Jackets team, collaboration for managing floods and other risks are to provide opportunities to improve resiliency with different partners. Here's a good map of the shared responsibility and purpose of increasing shared responsibility of different sectors and different viewpoints. Also to have the ability to include or enable flood risk management actions or projects in your area or areas. Like I said, try to reduce that risk. So what do Silver Jackets teams do? So this is very similar to emergency management cycle from response, recovery, mitigation, and preparedness trainings. So for preparedness and trainings, normally we do flood exercise, workshops, public outreach campaigns, flood season coordination meetings, messaging out, and try and help have a good, clear message going to other information sectors. For the response, there's emergency management support, public outreach, inundation mapping, updates on emergency action plans or emergency warning systems. For recovery, you could have hazard mitigation grant program implementation, flood risk management training, non-structural workshops. For mitigation, you could have evacuation plans, natural-based solutions, inundation mapping, comprehensive planning. These are kind of the areas that we can focus on for flooding and different projects we can do. The values that Silver Jackets can do is to align efforts to minimize duplication for leveraging activities, projects to meet multiple objectives. We help each other connect with resources or communities to make sure we all have one messaging going out, that we're not duplicating efforts. We try to build relationships with the different partners, making your friend, so that we know we're on the same page, and have a whole of government approach. That way it's not just one city, one community, it's everyone working together on one effort. Every team is different. Members, agencies, areas of expertise are different. Depends on how it's made. Meeting frequency varies. It could be monthly or biannually. Teams could vary in their capacity and efforts. And for Florida, we normally do quarterly meetings for the Silver Jackets team, and then if you are part of the projects that we have, you might be a part of that project team to give your expertise, and they might meet more regularly depending on getting those certain expectations for projects or working on those kind of things. So those, and then you might meet earlier because you want to try and get those details done quickly so the program can be funded, the project can be funded. Like I said earlier, Silver Jackets teams are led by the state, territory, or tribe. So for Silver Jackets team facilitation interagency projects or activities that have a continuous mechanism for improving processes or identifying and resolving gaps or limitations for communities or agencies. Each agency should fund its own participation and work, and teams leverage and optimize resources through expertise of different stakeholders and authorized across agencies and levels of government. So here's kind of how Silver Jackets for Florida work out. Florida Silver Jackets work with USACE and the Flood Risk Management Services, and then interagency recovery coordination all are kind of linked together to try and have better collaboration and coordination. Here is an example of some projects we did for Florida Silver Jackets that were special projects for high water marks for Tarpon Springs. There was a couple locations where we found where the high marks would be after certain hurricanes that had big impacts in areas. We did that project to try and do the background knowledge, but we didn't do the physical putting the signs into the dirt. We did a lot of the managing and getting the information on and creating the signs. We also had one for the Cedar Key high watermark as well. There were three locations we had. Two of the locations are the ones with the red markings were near the more coastal, and the one in the middle was near one of the libraries that had a big history of the town to show what the history of flood damage is, and it was a bigger sign to show more information. Also, each year we have proposals for new projects. So this year we have a Lake County Emergency Action Plan in the works to try and get funding for and do that project. So here's a little more detail on the special project for high water marks. For this project, key stakeholders were collaborated with from city, local, nonprofit organizations that were interested in doing a high watermark project. We also created a story map for Cedar Key. I can put the Cedar Key link for you if you want to look at that. It has really cool information about the history of the area and how flooding affects the area. So it was a really cool project. For promoting flooding response through resiliency, here's some activities and products through workshops. Here's just some examples of hazard education, doing assessments for vulnerability, doing modeling for flooding and hydrology guides, doing pamphlets and press releases, water plans, resiliency studies. Here's just some examples of projects that could be possible for people in the region and other collaboration efforts. So for Florida Silver Jacket needs, community outreach, disaster recovery teams. So this is kind of how the process for project teams work. Also has proposal for projects with FDEM and USACE gets the initiative proposals from different organizations who are interested in wanting to do a project, and then we do a proposal and we send it for USACE for their final approval to see which projects might be funded. Yeah. Here's the interagency project for floodplace level flood assessment inventory. So this is one of the projects we did last year in collaboration with Flood Hub. And the goals were to have equitable framework for prioritizing and completing acquisitions of flood data and basin level assessments using GIS mapping to support future resourcing by Florida legislative and state agencies. This inventory catalog was to demonstrate the most vulnerable communities, the data deficiencies. The anticipated outcome was to give communities access to pertinent information for reducing flood risk and improve life safety, increase resiliency. The state of Florida has established the Florida Flood Hub, one-stop shop for all levels of government. That way, they want to incorporate flooding planning for smarter infrastructure and policies, flood risks using flood research and digital modeling data. So yeah, so last year we had a project for creating the modeling system, and now we have a new project on how to best go through this modeling system to do more of a guidebook on how to use it. So multiple projects can be in other years if they keep if they build on each other. So like this one. So for groundwater, flooding occurs when the water table rises. Surface water flooding occurs when volume of rainwater or marine flooding cannot drain adequately and collects on or flows over the overside dry ground. Storm surge flooding occurs when an abnormal rise of water is generated by a storm and overall above the prediction of the tides. The rise in water level can cause extreme flooding in coastal areas. When storm surge coincides with normal high tides. Tidal flooding occurs when a relative sea level rise and local factors push water levels above the normal high mark. Changes in prevailing winds, shifts in ocean currents, and strong tidal forces all cause tidal flooding, which NOAA defines as at least 1.8 feet above mean high tide. So these are just some key information from that project and outputs interested for those flooding sources. So for the project benefits, users for centralized location of flood modeling and identifies resources to prioritize new project models for flooding. It has a dashboard for public use and a guidebook of flood models, like I said, was in progress for this year. And it looks similar to this Flood Hub map. So if you want this link, you just let me know. I can put it in the chat as well. So here in Lake Martin was the flood management study. The project goal was to provide technical hydraulic and hydrodynamic modeling. The benefits and uses was to recommend reduce flood risk and improve damage in Lake Martin, and identified key areas that were vulnerable. It acknowledged recognition of non-structural flood proofing as the best solution in several areas. There also was a project for developing a Yankeetown vulnerability assessment. Benefits for this for Yankeetown was to show the vulnerabilities to sea level rise, extreme tides, storm surges, and rainfall. And completing the vulnerability assessment helps according to criteria outlined in the Florida statute. For additional FDP project funding and some HMGP, which is Hazard Mitigation Grant Program funding, you might have to do a vulnerability assessment to show what hazards are risky and what you want to try and do for reducing that risk in flooded areas. You can also develop inventories of significant assets for transportation, evacuation routes, critical infrastructure, critical community and emergency facilities, natural, cultural, and historical resources. You can also do wet flood-proofing strategies, allow flooding waters to flow through continuously and more easily in buildings. We also had a project for incorporating corals in the hazard mitigation grant program funding. This project was to establish framework for communities, planners to use natural coral or hybrid reefs as flood mitigation features. As a lot of the coral reefs were being inundated after storms and being impacted. The project benefits was for Florida-centric guidance for core funding opportunities and having a cross-disciplinary question and answers when it comes to hybrid corals and reef registration in Florida. So beyond silver jackets, for a federal interagency resource exchange or FIRE is a local organization information sharing and relationship building event intended for communities and regions experiencing economy distress. Communities best suited for FIRE include those which are getting together critical economic or demographic data, evaluate economic development options, and analyze economic revitalization strategies. You can also establish baseline knowledge, relevant federal programs and contacts, and seek a forum to exchange information sharing and work in relationship with interagency governments and cross-sector partners. If you want to be more involved in silver jackets and want to be part of the regional or the quarterly meetings, you can always reach out to us if you want to be part of that. We typically have guest speakers. You can request topics or about different flood emergency management things. We also had one about just hazards for sinkholes a couple of times. So we just try and bring different topic speakers to talk about different emergency management programs and policies. If you have any questions, you can always contact me or the other representative for Silver Jackets is Stephanie Bowles with the USACE. These are just some examples of the different projects you could do or the vision of Silver Jackets. If you have any questions or anything, just let me know.
Thank you, Evan. It looks like we already have a couple of questions in the chat for you. So first of all, could you put those links for the flood assessment inventory and the hybrid reefs guide into the chat when you get a chance?
Yes.
And if you can't, if it's not convenient right now, I can also send them out to all of the attendees after this.
Okay. I might do that just to make it so it's not jumping back and forth on screens, so people don't get so confused. But yeah, I'll send out all the links I mentioned earlier. That way people can go see those different projects. If you want to learn more about the program, so yeah, I'll probably send an email to Claire with all the different links on it. That way she can distribute it to everybody else.
Yeah, perfect. I can do that. So feel free to either unmute yourself or drop your questions in the chat. I'll kind of monitor the chat. So there's a question on here about, for the Silver Jackets, do you all expand at all into other hazards, or is there a plan to expand into other hazards, or is this Silver Jacket solely focused on flooding?
Our main one is flooding related projects for this the Florida one. Other subjects could be made up of different perspectives. For ours, it's mostly for resiliency for flooding.
Awesome, thank you. And then we have another question in here. And Kamiko, thank you for your questions. I'm going to skip around and make sure we get to everyone's questions. But if you need to follow up with Evan, Evan, if you're willing to drop your contact information into the chat for any further follow-up questions, that would be awesome. Where did the funding come from for the Lake Martin project, and how did the funding get secured if the BCA was lower than 1?
So when we get submitted projects, and people are interested in wanting to do that project, we'll take it and we say, oh, that's a cool project. We try and send it for USACE to have their final approval, so because they're the ones that have the funding availability for those projects. And if those projects are deemed eligible, then we get the funding for it. It's kind of out of our hands to say yay or nay on it, for Florida side at least. So we have to ask the USACE corporation for federal to say yay or nay on those. Even if the BCA is lower than that, they might have different criteria that I don't know what depends on how they approve it. That's out of my hands. we just suggest proposals that could be beneficial for Florida, and then hopefully they'll get funding for it down the line.
So thank you. Right. And do you all ever partner with academic institutions or non-governmental research teams on any of your projects?
We do. We use some college entities might have knowledge for resiliency in their area of expertise for different flooding events and stuff. So if they are willing to want to be participants in that, we always encourage it. It might be hard for them to actually come into the door because they might not know what the program does, if they can actually be used to it. So our goal is trying to maybe make that more accessible to others, to say, hey, please come and join our meeting so you can learn more and we can get your expertise for those academia expertise. So yeah, we encourage it, and by all means, please come to our meetings or there's project meetings to try and help Florida out better.
Awesome. And are those meetings open to anyone? If folks wanted to sign up, would they just contact you?
For the quarterly meetings or the project meetings?
For the quarterly meetings.
So yeah, if you would like to be part of the quarterly meetings, just let me know, and I can put you on the list to be sent, email list to be to the link for those meetings.
Awesome, thank you. All right, any other questions? And Kamiko, I see all of your questions. I'm going to leave some of those for you to follow up with Evan. I'm curious about does each state, the Silver Jackets team in each state operate pretty independently? Or is there any like cross collaboration between like say Florida and Georgia Silver Jackets?
I have not seen many cross collaboration for different states or regions, but we have used people who maybe collaborate with projects that were similar. So like if Puerto Rico or Georgia had a project that was something about flooding, I'm like, hey, how did you do this thing? we can reach out and say, hey, and get that information from them, and then take that back to our meetings and say, hey, this is what we learned from our affiliated other regions. The only way I can see it maybe happening is if their project kind of entitled both states to be incorporating the same kind of procedures. Um, like I said, I just haven't seen many that were grouping together. But again, we work together, just not on the same. They're more internal for each region.
Yeah, that makes sense. It seems like the Florida Silver Jackets, based on this presentation, are very active. Do you know, like, if I know we've got mostly Florida people on here, but we've got some people from Georgia, South Carolina, North Carolina as well. Are the Silver Jackets teams in other states kind of equally active, or does it kind of depend on the state?
It does depend on the state. We have a couple years ago we had more projects. So we had maybe 5 or 6 projects that were proposed, and then this coming year we only had one. So like it has been depending on who's interested in wanting to sponsor a project, do all the work go behind it, is a key contributor, and keeping those partners willing to be part of it, because we might have to have a federal, state, local representative for the project, and not having those key partners in all those meetings is makes the projects go longer and not as successful. Yeah, kind of. Also, I was looking at one of the how does agency contribution or strengths and gaps. That's one of the weaknesses, that's gaps that we need to try and work with, to say, hey, collaborate more with other people to try and get more buy-in to the projects. To show, hey, this is why we're doing the projects that we are, and out because a lot of this is outside people's normal day-to-day operations for the projects. Try and be more enthusiastic of reducing risk in flood areas.
Yeah, awesome. Thank you. Yeah, Jeff.
Hey, Evan, you're doing an excellent job
Oh,
with the presentation and answering the questions. I myself was a coordinator for the Silver Jackets program for the Span District Corps of Engineers, like since 2010. So yeah, to fill inside of it, like the questions that Claire was asking there about other places like Georgia, for example, we had a group that met like once a month. We had the Georgia Emergency Management Agency was one of our key sponsors, and as well as Georgia DNR, FEMA, USGS, NOAA, National Weather Service, as well as National Highway Administration. So, you know, we're all really tied into all of that. So, and all the interest in reducing flood risk, that was the key focus. We did a lot of work throughout the state of Georgia, but also coordinated with folks in the Jacksonville district and putting together conferences and those kind of things. And of course, we had at that time, I think we were having annual or biannual kind of meetings where we get together nationally, and everybody would present their ongoing projects, and have a few days together. But I just want to kind of add to that. Some of the questions that Claire had asked, as well as thank you for this presentation.
Awesome, thanks, Jeff.
Yeah. And it also fits in with meeting that Claire mentioned about the roundtable you have. Where we're looking at answering some of these tough questions about gaps in response, recovery, preparedness, as well as looking at underserved communities, under-resourced communities, and how we fill in those gaps. And this is like a great program for that. And actually, It's all somebody asked, well, how do you get academics involved, and that's, I think, based on the type of projects and proposals that we submit. So there are some proposals that, the ideas come from the academic groups and their interest, and we used to take a look at them and review them and then send them forward as a proposal. So yeah, so it's like, I think it's Silver Jackets is, anything open to reducing flood risk in those communities. And I think you could maybe help me with this, Evan. I think it's still basically focused on studies, but not construction. Is that correct?
So yeah, it's mostly planning related ventures. It's not no boots on ground projects. It's more planning in areas. So that's true.
Yeah, so it presents a great opportunity, like, doing these vulnerability studies that lead to other types of studies, either outside the core or within the core. Studies into to other types of design, into construction. So this is like a foundational basis that could lead to other type of core projects and programs, like continuing authority programs or their general investigation type of programs.
Yeah. So like one of the projects was doing an emergency action plan. So just to use that to show what they can use in the future in that specific area when flooding and or other emergencies happen. Kind of getting that recovery piece involved into the process for USAID and mitigation, kind of working together.
Yeah, great.
Yeah, I'm interested in one of Kamiko's questions in here, which I think is a really good one. From your perspective, Evan, and Jeff, feel free to jump in too, because this relates a lot to conversations we've been having at SCDRP. What are some gaps that you've seen in the mitigation or preparedness or recovery piece that could benefit from new partnerships, like maybe more academic institutions or more local partners? Are there any like major gaps that you're seeing?
Like I said, the biggest gaps I really saw was maybe people not knowing what they could do on projects and if they didn't know what they could contribute to them. And so because they felt like it was either redundant project or redundant part, that they kind of like left the project, or other external differences of not being there anymore on that project makes projects in general hard to be completed, and just getting people to talk in meetings is always fun. Just making sure that people know we're here to help each other and coordinate together. So yeah.
Awesome. Any other questions for Evan? And then I have one final question, unless anyone else wants to jump in. And Evan, I appreciate we've thrown a lot of questions at you, so thank you for answering all of them so well. So I see here that there's opportunities we can contact you or Stephanie to submit ideas for Silver Jackets projects. Is there, you've kind of already spoken to this, but maybe could you emphasize one more time kind of what are you looking for in a project? What for like a good, successful Silver Jackets project? Like, are there very general criteria you can share? Again, you've kind of already spoken to this, but I'm wondering if you could just reemphasize it.
The biggest parts is on the projects are projects that are planning initiatives that are looking to try to reduce risk for flooding in any capacity. A lot of times it's for local institutions, but hopefully projects that could span not just local but also state and other agencies um, would be helpful. That way it's not just siloed in one area, it's helping other communities out. Because if, for example, if Jacksonville or other city has a really good project, maybe you can utilize that in another um, area. For example, um, we had a project for Greenway initiatives and for Jacksonville, but we also used it for Baker County um, to try and incentivize those kind of projects. If we see that it might be a need for other areas um, down the line, that's always beneficial because the state's not just one area, it's all over, and people are all affected in different ways. Um, and if someone has a key area to make it better, that'd be awesome. We can always learn from others.
Awesome, thank you. Oh, we've got another question in here. So to bounce off of that question, would a project that lessened the force of flooding count? So like living shorelines or breakers?
It might, but you might have to have a reason why the the on the planning side what it might look like in those communities. So like if you install that, or is it already in place of those procedures? Do you have to make the procedures first, and you have to have the flooding lesson area in that? Do projects for them? It just depends on how little the area knows about it and how you can make it more robust after that. Like I said, for the coral reef one, it was very segmented on certain areas because you might have natural or artificial corals, but knowing what you can and can't do was kind of a picky point of state local waters, and so knowing where you can do things was always a key thing for that project. Once we actually started getting into the project details. And projects as you start could be more narrow focused as you work on them. So again, you might have an idea of trying to lessen force of flooding in general, and then you might break it down to say living shorelines strategy to try and do that in this specific area or areas could be a way to narrow focus that vision.
Awesome. Thank you for that clarification, Evan. Well, thank you so much for coming today and for sharing about the Florida Silverjackets. I think it was a very informative presentation. And like I said, I know we have a lot of Florida people on this call, so I'd encourage you all to be thinking about ways that you want to get involved or collaborate. The QR code is up there to the Silverjackets website. Evan, thank you for dropping your contact information into the chat. So I encourage you all, if you have additional questions or ideas, to reach out to Evan. And with that, we will wrap up. If I can find, there we go. We will wrap up with partner sharing time. So if you have any announcements, calls, requests for this group, please either drop them in the chat or you can unmute yourself. And Evan, same for you. If you have any requests of this group or any specific requests for connections, please feel free.
All right, cool. Thank you.
Thanks, Evan. Thank you, Christian. Conference in Miami next month. And anything that you add to the chat, I will share in our next newsletter, which will be after the SCDRP annual meeting. All right, well, feel free to, I'll hang on for a couple minutes, so feel free to continue to drop things into the chat. But thank you all so much for being here. Thank you very much, Evan, for a great presentation, and we're looking forward to hopefully some continued collaboration. And yes, Kamiko, thank you for, I think I will recopy that link into the chat. Let me just scroll back about the National Academies for Sciences program. It's a fellowship that closes today at 5. Thank you, Ashley.